everybody. We're going to be making today this pattern. I'm going to be showing you how to go right from the very start, we're cutting out our pattern, all the way through to completing it, and we're going to do it in lots of different stages. So when you get a pattern like this, you can see there's several different items that are on it, and we're going to be making dress B, so those are the pattern pieces that I'm going to be looking for when I open up the packet. So when we open it, we've got loads of information, and it can look really daunting, but it really isn't daunting, it's just extremely thorough. So it shows you absolutely everything that you're going to need to do and everything that you need to know. Now it often has lots of different languages on it as well, which again is why it's so big. So it's got all of the instructions on how to make your item. So it goes through it stage by stage, and these diagrams are really useful. So what I'm going to do is we're now going to open up the pattern, and we're looking for pattern pieces to do with dress B. And they're quite fragile piece of paper, but okay, so I've got skirt front here, so I'm going to need this piece. Got skirt back over this side. Yeah, ties, because the dress is going to have a tie around the waist, so we need those ones. That's headband, we don't need that, I'm not making a headband. Okay, on here we've got okay, so this is a sleeve, but this is for sleeve A, because you'll notice on the pattern here, these sleeves are different to these sleeves. So we're looking for the sleeves for part B, or dress B, which are here, sleeve B. Okay, so I'm going to begin cutting these out. Now, what you need to do when you have pattern pieces like this, you need to decide what size you're making. You should know what size you're making. We're going to make the extra large, so I'm just going to cut the pieces out. And when you're cutting it, can you see? When you're cutting it, we've got all of these different notches. So if we can just zoom in here, we've got these little notches here. Now they're very important. You need to cut those out as you go as well. And we've got this grain line. Now that refers to the fabric, the weave, and the cross grain of the fabric. We'll talk about that when I lay it out on the fabric. And these little circles here, that indicates the centre, and that's very important when we're lining it up. So again, we're going to mark that on. We've got these notches here, and this notch. Now this says, on this one here, it says fold line. I'll just turn that round. We've got that fold line. That means that we're going to cut this piece out on a fold of fabric. So we get 2 of those. Yeah. Okay, so I'm going to begin cutting that out now. And you need to cut as close to the line as you can. Never cut inside the line. If you need to, always cut outside the line. Because it's better to be slightly bigger than too small. I'm just going to try and notch that. Just going to cut that and then do it later. Okay, so that's our first pattern piece cut out, so we can put that safely to one side. I suggest you put your name on yours because you'll probably be working near other people, so just write your initials on it. Okay, so I've cut out all the pieces and I've made sure that I've cut out these little notches like I showed you before. So now what we need to do is to lay them out on our fabric. Now, the one thing you need to remember is that we've got an edge here which is called the selvage of the fabric, and it's the clean edge, it's the side that's not going to fray if you pull it, and then you've got the cut edge here, which is where it's been cut from the roll, and that's the fraying side. Now what we need to do is we need to fold our fabric. So I've already folded this in half and I'm making sure that my edges are completely lined up all the way around. The reason we're doing that is because on the fabric here it's got centre front on fold, so what we need to do is we need to make sure that we're laying that out on the fold, so when we cut it we'll get two pieces that open out and they're perfectly even on both sides. So I'm going to put that piece up there. I've already arranged where I'm going to put these, and this piece down here. Again, I've got a centre front on fold here. One thing you need to be aware of when you're laying your pieces out is that we've got these things called grain lines, and that grain line has to go either up and down against the selvage here, so parallel to the selvage, or it has to be at a right angle to the selvage, like that. Okay, so that's them all laid out and there's enough room for them, and that's good. So now what you need to do is you need to pin it on. So I've got my pins, and you need to be really careful when you're pinning it on that your fabric doesn't get all wobbly underneath. It has to remain really flat. So I'm going to pin this on, and also this line here, that has to be dead on the fold, because if it's not, then you're going to gain yourself an extra centimetre there when you cut it out. So it has to be absolutely completely lined up with that fold. So I'll just show you pinning onto this one and then we'll move on. I'm trying to get underneath, go through both pieces. And pin it into place. I'm going to put one in the middle as well there, I think, just to keep that in place. Move that time behind, I know it's going to fit on there. And it's important to remember that your cutting of your pieces, this probably is going to take you quite a long time, but it's really important to get it right, because if your pieces are in any way the wrong shape, even slightly off, you're going to find it really difficult to sew a neat piece of clothing, because your lines aren't going to line up where they should. If that looks really flat, and I'll double check the back in a minute. Okay, so I'm going to continue to do that. Okay, so now we've got all of our pieces laid out in the correct places, and they are pinned on. Now it's a fine balance between having enough pins that keep your pattern in place, but not too many pins that actually distort the pattern, because what can happen, you can see where it makes it a bit bumpy, where the pin goes in and out. If you've got too many of them, it's just going to basically change the shape of your pattern, and there's some quite subtle curves and things that you need to get right when you're cutting it out. So it's really important when you're cutting that you're not cutting at a stupid angle like this. You're always trying to rotate your body so you're cutting at the right angle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go for this bit first, from this angle, and you can cut into your wastage to make it easier. Do little snips to make sure that you're getting the right shape. I'm ignoring the notch for the time being. I'm going to come back to that. try not to lift that up, and you need to try and keep your fabric as flat as possible and try not to move it as much as possible. Okay, so I've done that piece. I've moved my body round rather than moving the fabric, and you're trying to cut on the line or a fraction of outside the line, but not massively outside the line, because otherwise again you're going to have a different shape. I think what I'll do is I'll come from the other side, so I'm just going to cut into this little bit, so I don't need that bit. Okay, so that's looking pretty good, I'm quite happy with that. Keep going. And obviously we're cutting through both of our layers because we're cutting two pieces. And again, I can see there's a slight curve here. Don't presume that all of your lines are straight. I'm going to come back to these notches. Okay, good, happy with that. So, when you do your notches, do not cut out the whole triangle, because what happens is it sometimes just distorts the shape of the material. So I always, rather than cutting out the whole triangle, just do a snip. Now it's important, obviously, you've got sharp scissors with this bit that's sharp here. Some of our scissors haven't got that at school, but and there's one there. Okay, now there's also some markings on here that we need to transfer. So there's this little circle here that we need to transfer, and what I'm going to use some chalk for that. So we've got some chalk pencils, or you could use a removable pen that's like a washable felt tip. So I'm just going to get my chalk. So this is dressmaker's chalk, and we need to go through that little XL there, which is going to be slightly annoying. We make a hole in the pin in the pattern. And the benefit of chalk is that it will wash out. There we go, so that's now marked on. Any others? There's a few others around here, this little triangle. Okay, alright, and now only then, after you've transferred all of your markings, should you take your pieces apart. I'm just going to leave that as it is, because then I can mark out what it is afterwards.